So this is going to be going over video layers and image layers and how to use those in this assignment. So down here in your timeline, you will be populating this with multiple frames. All right. Before I even get started, I'm going to set my frame rate. All right. So should be, where is it? Set timeline. Wow, okay. So I'm gonna set my frame rate. This is maybe like standard between 26 and 32 frames per second. So I'm going to change this to be 12 frames per second. I am halving, like I'm basically splitting that 24 frames per second to that is standard digital video, right? So in standard digital video movies, you're seeing about 24 frames to 32 frames per second. In animation, we can get away with doing 2 frames per second. That's called working on twos, which means that you are using 1 frame to stand in for every 2 in a traditional movie setting. So that's why I'm setting this to 12. I took that 24 frame rate and split it in half and did 12 frames. You can play around with this if you want, but I've found that this works pretty well for what we're doing right now. And it also shortens the amount of frames that you have to draw. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, and you'll see that shrunk down my frame over here, my layer 1. Right now, this is an image layer. Any layer that I add over here is going to be an image layer. It is not going to be a video layer. Those two things are different. I'm going to undo this, okay? And I'm going to just lay out my keyframes first, all right? I have been working with keyframes and point-to-point, pose-to-pose animation instead of straight-ahead animation. Straight-ahead animation being when you draw, like if I'm doing this cube animation, why am I having difficulties now? Okay, this is going to be really bad, but bear with me. I think my Wacom tablet is going a little slower because I am recording, so this is going to be really fun. Straight ahead animation would be that I would draw 1 cube. This is a square right now, right? It's not a cube, but you get it. I would draw the next one. Then I would draw the next one, okay? Versus pose-to-pose animation, which is where you will draw the key movements in your animation and then kind of fill in between. And so I found that that works best for me. You are welcome to do straight ahead animation if you want. I'm erasing this right now. Again, it's going super slow, so I may have to revert to the example I already have set up in order to explain this fully, but we will see how it goes. If for any reason your program is going really slow, because that's happened to me a couple of times while I've been working with my Wacom tablet, I have a computer that has less storage on it, so it goes a little bit slow sometimes. You can restart your program, so just save your document, close the program, restart. You can also restart your computer, all right? And that will just kind of refresh it and get it to go again. I've noticed that if I've been working on the Wacom tablet for about an hour, it will start to go kind of slow. So keep that in mind. All right, so with this image layer, again, I'm going to be doing my keyframes as image layers. Image layers are, you'll see the difference in a second when I show you how to use video layers, but image layers are basically just static layers that don't allow you to, like you would have to create each individual frame. So that's why I'm using them for my keyframes right now. So I'm going to draw out this cube. I'm going to set my vanishing point to be right here so that I can keep consistency with the dimension of my cube as it moves. The vanishing, like the linear perspective on my cube will change. This is going so slow, so I'm only going to do 2 frames like this. My cats are fighting in the background, if you have not noticed. Shh! I apologize for that. Okay, so this is my first keyframe. I'm now going to toggle this, this playhead over and create a new layer. Okay, and you'll notice it puts it on a different timeline. Okay, I'm just going to select that and pull it down. You can also make your timeline a little bit larger, like this. All right, I'm going to drag that down and just put them on the same one. It has already created a video group for me, but remember, these are still static image layers, okay? They're not video layers. So the next movement in my oh, I put these out of order. Okay, this one is, no, that's layer 1. Okay. It won't let you sometimes edit a layer unless your playhead is right over it and it is highlighted. Okay, so if you're getting those error messages, that's what's going on. Okay, so I am going to enable onion skins over here so that I can see what I did previously. So enable onion skins. And then if you go to onion skin headings, it will say show frames before and after. So if you want to show 3 frames that you've previously drawn, you would change this here. Or 3 frames that are coming next, or sorry, vice versa. No, that's right. So 3 frames that are coming next, you can change it here. I'm just going to keep it at 1. And it's not working, of course, because why would it? Oh, the problem here is that my frames are messed up because these are video frames and these are image frames. So I have to shorten this. Right now it is, these frames are lasting 5 seconds long, which is absurd. So I'm just going to pull that back to the 2 frame mark. The frame rate I set will apply when I bring in a video layer, so I'll show you that in just a second. I know this is kind of a little bit tedious. What you can also do is, now that I have the second layer, I could just duplicate it multiple times once I have it set to the time rate, like the rate that I want. Pull that back, again, making my timeline a little bit smaller. Alrighty. So you'll notice that now it's showing me the previous frame on my, I'm on layer 2, but I'm seeing what I previously drew, okay? What is going on now? Okay. All right, so again, I'm just doing my keyframes right now. So I have, this is my beginning stance. I'm going to create another. I'm trying to maintain the proportion of my box as much as possible. And I'm going to keep that vanishing point that I set for myself earlier. Okay. And try to bring something in right over here. Okay. So now that's terrible. But I'm going to be able to come back in here and clean this up after I'm done. So these are 2 keyframes. Okay. This, obviously I'm going to have to put some movement between these 2 things, okay, for it to actually look like it's moving. And that's where the video timeline comes, the video layers come in handy. So I'm going to move this off just slightly. These show me where, this is where I'm starting and this is where I'm going. So I want to add, go to layer, and add a, where is it? Video layers. Blank video layer. If you wanted to work from a reference video, this is something you can put in, but it makes the program go really slow, so I would recommend maybe doing some screenshots and placing them in the program. But for now, we're just working with geometric shapes, so you shouldn't need to bring in any, videos or whatnot. So you'll see it gives me a new blank video right here. I'm actually going to drag this outside of group 1 so that it creates a new video timeline. I'm actually going to put it underneath. Okay, so you'll see that this is now its own folder. Okay, this is holding my keyframes. I'm actually going to rename these keyframe 1 and keyframe 2. Okay, that way if they get out of order, I know where they go. And now I have this video timeline, this video layer underneath. And I can expand, should be able to, expand the video layer. All right, well, we'll see how that goes. All right, so this video timeline down here, this video layer, what it allows me to do is I'm going to start drawing after this frame. So if I draw on the video layer right here, it's going to be occurring, my image is going to be occurring underneath the image that that's playing. It's going to happen underneath my keyframe, and I don't want that because each frame needs to be its own separate image. So I'm going to come in here and erase that. Again, I apologize, my program is going super slow because I am recording at the same time, so it's trying to do 2 high processing things at once, and it's angry at me. So I'm going to take my playhead and put it over here, all right? So after this frame, but before this frame, there needs to be some movement, right? So I'm going to select this layer, all right? So I'm now working on this layer, and I'm going to start drawing the in-betweens. It's okay if these aren't perfect. You can go back and kind of clean them up afterwards. You do want to try to maintain the consistency as much as possible. So something I've been doing is, and it's really hard for me to show this right now because my Wacom tablet is going so slow, but I try to draw my first kind of line of the animation and then create a straight edge off of that, like a 90-degree angle, and that's not really 90 degrees, right? And then kind of measure from there to maintain consistency. So you'll notice that box was more of a rectangle, which was not great. I'm going to pull this down just a little bit. All right. And then pull it up. All right, great. Vanishing lines, vanishing point, right? Ooh. All right. The Wacom tablet is a little bit awkward at first. You'll get used to it. However, it should not be going this slow. It's just doing that because of the recording. So just keep that in mind if you're going slow to troubleshoot that. All right, so that's my first in between. What's great about the video layer, this is where it comes in, is I don't have to create a new layer now. I can just toggle to my next point. All right, so I'm actually going to make this shorter. I've realized that actually each one frame here stands in for 2 frames. So I messed that up. Should only be 1 frame because there's 12 frames in the animation. Okay. So now that I've created that first drawing, I can toggle to my next frame and then keep drawing for the in-between. So since this is going really slow, I'm going to just show you the example I have set up over here. All right, so basically I have all of my keyframes drawn for this animation in my video group 1. And when I toggle through these, you'll see I have my first movement. Let me make this invisible first. Video group 2, okay. So I have my first cube, second cube, third cube, then it's starting to turn into a cylinder. Now it's, continuing to turn into a cylinder, more so. Now it's almost a cylinder, fully a cylinder. And it's meanwhile moving across the screen. This is when it's going to rotate, okay? Next rotation, and now it's turning into a sphere. But this doesn't have any in-betweens in it yet. That's why I have these video layers down here. So if you go and turn this back on, you'll notice that now when I toggle between, I was able to fill this in with smaller movements. And I'll go ahead and enable onion skins, okay? For when I was working, I had it set to 1 before and 3 after so that I could see my, like let's say I'm going to do the in-betweens for this, okay? I would be able to move my frames off to the side by about 3 frames. Okay, and so now I can see this is my image, okay? And now when I go to my next section, I have the image that I'm working from and then my keyframe. So even though there's a lot of space here that I still haven't filled in, because I have it set to 3 frames after, so 1, 2, 3, I can still see the onion skin for my next keyframe. So this would then allow me to continue doing drawings, okay, in between. I feel like that was a little bit discombobulated. It's weird to be teaching to no one right now, so I don't know what the questions or confusions are. However, my big thing with this video is just to showcase how to utilize the video layers versus the image layers. So these are all image layers, okay? And the reason that I like that is because I was able to initially set up all of my keyframes, right? So I was able to say, okay, where do I want this object to go over time? And what are the major movements that it's going to go through? And I was able to do those all side by side. Then with my video layer, I could fill in the space and I could then plop these image layers on top of wherever they needed to be. So you'll notice some of these have more in-betweens than others, and it just depends on the fluidity of the movement or how I was able to draw it in that moment. So here I set down my image layer, and then there's maybe, 5 frames in between these, 4 frames in between these 2 keyframes, whereas there's probably only, I think, 2 or 3 between this one and this one. So having this video layer underneath allows me to fill in the gaps, and then I can move my image layers with my keyframes wherever they work best. And so working on that, you might think like, well, why don't I just work on a video layer the whole time? Well, the problem is the video layer, once you've kind of started working with those in-betweens, once you've started working on a video layer, you can't really go back and insert in between very easily. I think you can slice these up, but it becomes a little bit more complicated. So having those keyframes in between and then working in between each one of them, I think works really well. If you do decide to do a straight ahead animation without doing pose to pose, I might recommend you working with frames, like individual frames. So you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you just want to like do the movement kind of as you go, I might recommend working in frame animation versus video animation. I'm going to put this document on OneDrive maybe. I'll share it with y'all. My worry there is that, I mean, I don't want anyone to quote unquote cheat, so I guess the rule will be that you can't do this same animation. You can do something similar, but it needs to be a different kind of movement across the screen. But I'll put this up so that you can download it and kind of investigate the way that I've laid things out and see what you think about it, okay? Hopefully this helped for keyframes and video layers and image layers. Let me know what questions you have after you've watched this, and also if you have any feedback on how I can do it better. The big issue I'm having right now is just that my Wacom tablet is having a lot of lag. You should not have that much lag. Okay.